Wait, I want to ask you something. Americans especially. You go to work, you pay your taxes. Every single paycheck you get, your government gets its cut, no? And you do it because that's the deal. Your money goes towards building schools, roads, hospitals, a better country, a better world. What if I told you that's not where your money is going? What if I told you the taxes you pay, the money taken right out of your hands, is being used to make billionaires richer, to poison the air your children breathe, to contaminate the water you drink, and to destroy communities across the world? From the streets of America all the way to Africa. By the way, communities that never asked for any of this and never had a say. Right now, today, the biggest robbery in American history is taking place, and nobody is being questioned or arrested. Or at the very least, nobody is even talking about it the way it's supposed to be talked about. In this robbery, there are no masks, no guns, no broken windows, just suits, signatures, and silence. While you were working, while you were paying those very taxes, buying groceries, trying to keep your head above water, a small group of billionaires and their main man in the White House have been quietly rewriting the rules of America for themselves. We are talking about $48 billion a year being transferred from working people like you, straight to the 0.1% every single year. $48 billion a year. And the damage does not stop at America's border. It spreads to the air, water, and the climate, hitting hardest the people who contributed the least to this mess. Communities in Africa, communities in the global south. These are people with no lobbyists, no lawyers, and no seat at the table. My name is Bumlangmia, and today we are going to show you exactly who is behind all of this, exactly how they are doing it, and exactly what this is costing every single one of us. This is the greatest heist in American history. What is a heist? Now, before we get into the names, the numbers, and the receipts, I need you to understand something. This is not an accident. What is happening in America right now is not a mistake. It is not incompetence. It is not chaos. It is a plan, a carefully designed, deliberately executed plan. And the best way I can describe it to you is a heist. I am not talking about any heist. I am talking about the kind of heist that makes the ones on Netflix look like somebody stole candy from a corner store. Think about Ozark. Think about Narcos. Think about every great heist movie you've ever seen. Ocean's 11, Inside Man, Italian Job. And what do they all have in common? Think about how in every single one of those stories, the person always seen in front, the person taking all the heat, making all the noise, standing in front of the camera, is never the real power. The real power is always behind the scenes. Quiet, silent, untouchable. And this is exactly what is happening here. Because here is what most people get wrong about Donald Trump. They think he is the mastermind. He is not. That man is the front man. Trump is the front man, the man in front of the camera. The real masterminds are the billionaires, the people who poured hundreds of millions of dollars into his campaign and bought him his seat in the White House and are now using him to execute a plan that was never about America's greatness. It has always been about their profit. Think about every great heist you've ever watched. What do they all have in common? First, there is always the mastermind, somebody who sees the opportunity, draws the blueprint, and finances the operation. Second, there is always a front man, someone visible, someone who takes the attention while the real work happens in the shadows. Third, there is always a plan, something that looks like noise and chaos from the outside, but underneath, every single move is deliberate. And fourth, there is always a target, someone being robbed, someone who doesn't realize what is happening until it is already done. Now, let me show you how this maps out perfectly onto what is happening in the United States of America right now, and how the consequences of this heist are not staying inside America's borders. They are spreading across the entire world, to communities in Asia, to families in Latin America, and yes, deeply and painfully in Africa. So, the masterminds of this heist are a small group of the wealthiest billionaires on this planet. The front man, Trump. The plan: tax cuts for the rich, deregulations, destroying organizations built to protect ordinary people, burning the planet's future for short-term profits. And the target is you, the working American paying taxes every single month, the black family trying to build a business with no government support, the farmer in Ghana, the mother in Nigeria, the child in Bangladesh, all breathing in the consequences of decisions made in boardrooms they have never been invited into and will never be. The ordinary person everywhere on this earth who was never supposed to notice. So now, let me introduce you to the masterminds and show you exactly how much they paid to pull this off. Let's meet the crew, the donor list. So, who are the masterminds? Who exactly paid for this heist? Let me introduce you to the crew, and I want you to pay close attention because these are not just names, they are receipts. These are the names of the people we should hold accountable if the world burns tomorrow. More than $20 billion flooded into the 2024 American presidential campaign, shattering every record in American political history. $20 billion. Let that sit for a second. It's not just how much was spent, it's where the money came from, and more importantly, what those people got in return. Number 1, Elon Musk. You know him, the richest man on earth, owner of Tesla, owner of SpaceX, owner of Twitter. Now X. As of 2026, his net worth is now estimated at $852 billion. Somehow that was not enough. Elon Musk poured at least $288 million behind Trump's candidacy. And what did he get in return? He was handed the keys to something called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, an unelected private billionaire given access to your government's database, your tax records, and the power to fire federal workers by the thousands. His 130 days tenure was marked by legal setbacks, overstated saving claims, and very little evidence that DOGE made anything efficient. He has since officially left the role. His departure was confirmed during a joint Oval Office press conference with Donald Trump on May 30th, 2025. But don't be fooled into thinking this story is over. DOGE has become embedded across the government, from personnel in key positions to a government-wide push to build a master database of sensitive personal data. Those staffers could be in place for months or years to come. And here is the part that should make your blood boil. A Senate report alleged that Elon Musk could avoid up to $2 billion in legal liability as a direct result of DOGE's own actions. So the man cutting your government is protected from accountability by the very cut he made. His companies, SpaceX and Tesla, has received at least
$38 billion
in government contracts, loans, subsidies, and tax credits over the years. So the man who was slashing your government services was the same man whose companies get paid by your government. That is crazy. That is not efficiency. That is a conflict of interest. And one more thing about Musk. Bill Gates accused him of killing the world's poorest children through his cut to US aid.
In a brand new interview, billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates telling the FT this, quote, "The picture of the world's richest man killing the world's poorest children is not a pretty one." The FT reports this, quote, "Gates said Musk had canceled grants to a hospital in Gaza province, Mozambique, that prevents women transmitting HIV to their babies in the mistaken belief that the U.S. was supplying condoms to Hamas in Gaza in the Middle East. Quote, I'd love for him to go in and meet the children that have now been infected with HIV because he cut that money."
Modeling by Boston University estimated those cuts has resulted in 400,000 child deaths and 200,000 adult deaths by November 2025. And most of those children were in Africa. Number 2, Timothy Mellon. You may not know this name, but you need to. Heir to one of America's most powerful banking dynasty. He donated at least $125 million to Trump's Super PAC and $197 million in total across Republican causes, making him the second largest donor of the entire 2024 election cycle behind only Musk. $197 million from one man, from old money, from a family that has been accumulating wealth for generations, while the ordinary people who actually build America with their hands struggle every single day. Number 3, Mariam Adelson, a casino billionaire, owner of the Dallas Mavericks. She contributed $106 million to pro-Trump efforts, making her the third donor of the entire cycle. This is not her first time. After the Addisons donated tens of millions to help Trump win in
2016,
Trump announced the US will recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moved the American embassy there. The Addisons even offered to pay for the construction of the embassy. So do you see how this works? Donate, get policy. Obviously, this is not democracy. Number 4, Linda McMahon, a billionaire professional wrestling executive. She donated more than $21 million, over $20 million to MAGA Inc., and nearly $1 million directly to his campaign committee. What did she get? She is now the United States Secretary of Education. The woman in charge of your children's schools is a billionaire who paid $21 million to be there. And Here is where it becomes impossible to look away. Donors who give millions received personal benefits in return, government appointments, presidential pardons to family members, policy decisions worth billions. So let me ask you something. If you or I give a judge money and that judge ruled in our favor, what would we call that? Of course, we would call it bribery. But when billionaires do it in broad daylight, they call it democracy. To me, that is not democracy. That is the crew collecting their cut. And now that they have their hands on the wheel, let me show you exactly what they are doing with it and who is paying the price. The plan, how the money moves. Now that you know who the crew is, let me show you the plan. How does the money actually move? How does a heist this size actually work? It works in 3 moves. And every single move has been dressed up to sound like it's for you. It's not at all. Move number 1, tax cuts. In 2025, Trump signed what he called the One Big Beautiful Bill. Beautiful. That's what he called it. Let me show you what is actually inside it. More than 70% of the net tax cuts go to the richest fifth of Americans. Only 10% goes to the middle fifth, and less than 1% goes to the poorest Americans. Oh, it gets personal. Stay tuned. The richest 1% of Americans will receive an average tax cut of $66,000 every single year. $66,000 every single year. And collectively, the richest 1% will pocket $117 billion in net tax cuts in 2026 alone. That is more money than the entire bottom 60% of Americans combined. $117 billion to 1% of the population in a single year. And what about the people at the bottom? The people working 2 jobs just to pay rent. The poorest Americans, households making less than $24,000 a year, lost about $1,200 every year, mostly through cuts to Medicaid and food assistance. That is over 3% of their entire income. But it gets even worse the further you look ahead. By 2027, households making less than $15,000 a year will face a tax increase of over 9%. And by 2033, just 8 years from now, that same group will experience a 56% tax increase. 56% tax increase. The poorest people in the richest country on earth paying 56% more, while the richest pocket $66,000 extra every year, and they call it the Big Beautiful Bill. Now let me show you the corporations, because it gets truly criminal. At Trump's January 2025 inauguration, 4 CEOs stood right beside him on that stage. Amazon, Alphabet, Google's parent company, Meta, that's Facebook, and Tesla, Musk, Elon Musk, that's Elon Musk's company. 4 companies standing right there, celebrating their man taking power. In 2025, those 4 corporations collectively reported $315 billion in US profits. $315 billion. And how much do you think they paid in federal taxes? 4.9%. You, a working person, almost certainly paid more than that. Together, those 4 companies saved $51 billion in a single year. $51 billion they should have paid in taxes as the standard corporate rate, but didn't. And Tesla, Elon Musk company, and Tesla, Elon Musk's company, what the fuck is that name? And Tesla paid $0 in federal income tax in 2024. And over 3 years, Tesla reported $10.8 billion in US profits and paid an effective federal tax rate of just 0.4%, and that is more than 50 times less than what corporations are legally supposed to pay. $0 in taxes while you pay yours every single month. $0 in taxes while you pay yours every single month. Move number 2. Here is where the trick gets really clever, because while the billionaires are getting their tax cuts, ordinary people are getting hits from the other side with tariffs. And Trump will tell you foreigners pay for tariffs. He has said this over and over again. That is a lie. A study from the Kiel Institute for the World Economy found that importers and consumers in the US bear 96% of the tariff burden. The research director of the institute said plainly, the claim that foreign countries pay these tariffs is a myth. So what does that mean for you in real numbers? Clothing is up 14%. Household furnishing is up 8%. Everyday cleaning supplies up 5%. Beef is up 16%. Coffee is up nearly 20%. And according to Yale Budget Lab, one of the most respected non-partisan economic institutions in America, Trump's tariffs cost the average American household $2,400 every single year, the highest tariff burdens on ordinary Americans in nearly a century. Now, in February 2026, the Supreme Court ruled that some of these tariffs were illegal. A 6-3 decision. You might think that's good news, and it is, because within days, Trump's administration simply imposed new tariffs under a different legal authority. The squeeze on ordinary people never stopped. They just changed the mechanism. So, let's add this up. The richest 1% gets $66,000 tax cuts every year. The ordinary Americans lose $2,400 to tariffs, plus higher grocery bill, plus higher utility costs, plus losing healthcare. You are being squeezed from both sides simultaneously, paying more while receiving less. That is the heist. Number 3, cut the agencies that protect you. This is the move most people miss, because while everyone is arguing about taxes and tariffs, quietly, methodically, the agencies built to protect ordinary people, ordinary Americans, are being dismantled. The Minority Business Development Agency eliminated, the only federal agency in the entire United States government specifically designed to help minority entrepreneurs access capital, contracts, and markets, gone. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, gutted. The agency that stops banks from cheating you on loans, credit cards, and mortgages, dismantled. Food safety inspectors, cut. Air traffic controllers, cut. And nearly $1 trillion cuts from Medicaid over the next decade. According to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, that means an estimated 11.8 million Americans are going to lose their health insurance. 11.8 million people losing health care, so that the richest 1% can pocket $66,000 more a year. And who benefits when these protections disappear? Not you. The corporations and the billionaires who now have nobody watching them, because now they can do whatever they want. That is not a budget decision. That is a transfer of wealth. That is the plan. That is exactly how a heist works. Now, let me show you something most American political commentators completely ignore, because they only think about America. This heist has victims far beyond American borders, and these are the people paying the highest price. People who could not vote in the American election, people who never had a say and never even knew their names were on the list. And this is the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place, because of these people, because of people like this. The collateral damage, how they agreed is destroying the world. Now, I need to take you somewhere most American political commentators refuse to go, because what we have covered so far, the tax cuts, the tariffs, the gutted agencies, that is just the damage happening inside America's borders. This heist has victims everywhere, and I need you to understand something clearly before we go any further. This is not abstract politics. This is the air your children breathe, the water your family drinks, the food on your table, and it is getting worse. Deliberately, so that a handful of billionaires can keep getting richer. Let me show you the damage, all of it. Part 1, the A. In March of 2025, the Trump administration announced what they themselves called, and I am not making this up, the biggest deregulatory action in US history. And they were proud of this. They actually celebrated it. But what did it actually mean? More than 3,700 scientists, chemists, biologists, and toxicologists were cut from the Environmental Protection Agency. The agency specifically built to stop corporations from poisoning the air you breathe. And that takes the EPA back to staffing levels not seen since the 1970s. Think about that. The agency protecting your air and water, gutted. And the methane rule, the regulation stopping oil and gas companies from leaking one of the most powerful warming gases on Earth into the atmosphere, delayed. By the EPA's own calculation, that single delay will add the equivalent of 25 million gas cars worth of pollution into the atmosphere. 25 million cars worth of extra poison from one decision made by people who were paid to be there by the oil and gas industry. Part 2, the water. On his very first full day in office, day 1, Trump froze $10 billion in federal water infrastructure funding. This is money specifically set aside for replacing lead pipes and building water treatment plants. Gone on day 1. Lead pipes, the pipes that poison children's brain. The money to fix them frozen before he had even finished his first cup of coffee in the Oval Office. And up to 84% of America's wetland, that is 70 million acres, are now at risk of losing federal protection. Wetlands are nature's water filter. They clean pollution naturally, reduce flooding, and protect the drinking water for millions of people. All of that stripped of protection. All these so developers and industries can drill and build without restriction. The EPA scientists, that's the people who dedicated their career to protecting your family, have warned that Americans may not realize how much their exposure risk is rising, as the safety net the EPA always provided is being systematically destroyed. These are not activists. These are scientists who used to work inside the building. Part 3. The climate. On January 27, 2026, the United States officially withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement for the second time. This is now the only country on earth to have done this. The only one. Iran is still in it. Libya is still in it. Yemen is still in it. But the United States of America, the wealthiest, the most powerful nation in the history of the world, walked out alone. And it did not stop there. The Trump administration also initiated withdrawal from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, the world's leading scientific body on climate, and the Green Climate Fund. A wholesale abandonment on every major international climate institution built over the last 30 years. And the consequences, according to the modeling by the nonpartisan Rhodium Group, analyzed by ProPublica and The Guardian, Trump's climate rollback are expected to cause up to 1.3 million additional climate-related deaths worldwide. And here is the number that should make everyone watching this right now furious. The United States is responsible for around 20% of the planet's historical emission, but America will only suffer 1% of those additional deaths. The other 99% fall on Africa, South Asia, and the world's poorest communities. Countries like Niger, Somalia, Pakistan, and India. And these are nations that contributed almost nothing to this crisis, but will pay with their people's lives. 1.3 million people. People who never voted for Donald Trump. People who never donated a single dollar to his campaign, dying because of decisions made in boardroom and over offices built on the other side of the world. Part 4. The war. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched military strikes on Iran. They assassinated Iran's supreme leader, and the world has not been the same since. Now, I want you to ask yourself, who benefits from this war? Not you, not me, not the ordinary people of Iran, of America, of Israel, of the continent of Africa. No, here is who benefits. Defense contractors. The companies that manufacture bombs, missiles, and military equipment. These companies saw their stock prices jump immediately. Higher defense spending means more contracts. More contracts mean more profit. And many of those same defense contractors are major donors of the Republican Party. Also, oil companies benefit, because the moment the war started, oil prices exploded everywhere. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which 1/5 of the world's entire oil supply passes, was effectively shut down, and oil prices surged past $100 per barrel for the first time since 2022. And within days, they hit $119 per barrel. And what did Trump say when people raised concerns about rising oil prices? He posted on Truth Social, and these are his exact words. The United States is the largest oil producer in the world, by far. So when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money. Not you, not your family filling up at the gas station, not the mother in Kenya trying to feed their children, not the people in Africa trying to survive every day. By we, he means the oil producers, the billionaire, you know, the crew. Meanwhile, gasoline prices in the US surged past $4 per gallon. In California, it went above $5. And Goldman Sachs warns that if this war drags on, inflation could snap back to 3%, wiping out all the progress made on cost of living. But the thing is, the damage goes far beyond gas prices, because the Strait of Hormuz is not just an oil route. Up to 30% of the world's fertilizer export, that is the chemicals farmers use to grow crops, to grow food, also pass through that strait. And with its shutdown, fertilizer shipments have been cut off. And when fertilizer becomes scarce, food prices naturally go up. Crops fail, harvest shrinks, because it's gonna cost more now to grow food. And who suffers most? Sub-Saharan Africa, where over 90% of the fertilizer is imported, where farmers depend entirely on this supply, where households already spend the largest share of their income on food. The World Economic Forum said it plainly. The pain of this shock is unevenly distributed. Wealthier countries can draw on reserves and stabilization funds, but poorer countries in Africa cannot. For us in Africa, the same shock arrives immediately. We feel it immediately in the form of higher household prices, fiscal strain, and a greater risk of rationing or unrest. Djibouti, Egypt, Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, Ghana, Ethiopia, Senegal, Benin, Eritrea, Burkina Faso, Zambia, and many more. Countries that had no vote, no voice, no seat at the table, paying a price for a war started by people who will profit from it. This is not foreign policy. This is not economic strategy. That is the heist. Now let me bring this home to the Black American communities specifically, because the damage does not stop at Africa's shores. The Black American connection. I need to bring this home because everything we have talked about so far, the tax cuts, the tariffs, the environmental destruction, the war, all of it lands harder on some communities than others. And if you are Black in America, I need you to listen to this section carefully because the heist has a specific target within the target. Strike one. They killed the one agency built specifically for you. In March 2025, Trump signed an executive order eliminating the Minority Business Development Agency, the MBDA. Now, maybe you have never heard of the MBDA. A lot of people have not. But here is what it was doing quietly every single year for Black entrepreneurs and minority business owners across America. In 2024 alone, the year before it was shut down, the MBDA helped businesses secure over $3.2 billion in contracts and $1.6 billion in capital. It created and retained over 23,000 jobs. It was the only federal agency in the entire United States government specifically designed to help access capital, contracts, and markets. The only one. Now gone. And here is what that looks like in real life. A woman named Tamara Fowler used the MBDA funded capital readiness program to grow her business, Wiggle Giggle, from a small indoor playground into something real. And she was not the only one. But when Trump shut down the MBDA, the program ended. Her funding was cancelled. She said, "This program has brought a lot of funding and a lot of information to people, and it is free, not just for people of color. It's for all people in any sort of disadvantaged situation." Now gone with the stroke of a pen. And the scale of what was lost is bigger than most people realize. Economists estimate that closing America's racial opportunity gap could unlock $7.1 trillion in economic output, nearly a quarter of the entire US economy. That right there is not just a Black problem. That is America leaving $7 trillion on the table, and instead of opening the door, they lock it and threw away the key. Strike two. They are taking away your healthcare. The one big beautiful bill cut over $1 trillion from medical aid. And who relies more on medical aid than anyone else? More than half of all Black children in America rely on medical aid for their healthcare coverage, more than twice the rate of their white peers. And here is a number that stopped me cold when I found it. 64% of all Black births in the United States are financed by medical aid. 64%. Nearly 2 out of every 3 Black babies born in that country, their mothers relied on medical aid to have them safely. And now, the Congressional Budget Office, the nonpartisan independent scorekeepers of the United States government, has confirmed that these cuts will result in 11.8 million people directly losing their medical aid. That's 11.8 million people losing health insurance, so that the rich 1% can receive tax cuts every single year. That is not a coincidence. That is a choice. Strike three. The air and water in your neighborhood. This one actually goes back generations, and it is getting worse. Black Americans are exposed to 56% more pollution than they produce, 56% more pollution than they create. They are 75% more likely than white Americans to live in fence-line communities. These are areas right next to factories, chemical plants, refineries, and industrial facilities that pump poison into the air and water. A 2018 EPA study from the EPA's own scientists found that Black families face a 54% greater health burden from particulate pollution than the general population. This is not opinion. This is the government's own data. And Louisiana's Cancer Alley, an 85-mile stretch between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, home to majority Black population, contains about a quarter of the entire nation's petrochemical production. These are communities where most adults are attending 2 to 3 funerals per month from cancers linked to nearby fossil fuel plants. And now the EPA has been gutted. Over 3,700 scientists and toxicologists fired. The rules protecting these communities weakened. The Environmental Justice Office dismantled. The people who were already breathing the most poison now have the least protection. And here is the thing that ties all three strikes together. Many black Americans voted for change in 2024. Some voted for Trump specifically because of economic promises. Lower prices, more jobs, a better deal. I am not here to judge that. People were hurting. They wanted something different. But look at what different actually delivered. The one agency built for black businesses dismantled. The healthcare millions of black families depended on cut by $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. The environmental protection for communities already drowning in pollution gutted, and the wealth flowing upwards. All the money cut from all of these programs flow upward to the same billionaires who funded the cuts in the first place. As one analyst put it, the current dismantling is being conducted in a suit instead of a hood. The effect is the same. It threatens to destroy the infrastructure, crucial to minority economic advancement. You were told to vote for your wallet. But whose wallets were they really talking about? Now, after everything we have covered, let me tell you what you can actually do about it. What are you actually doing about it? So now you know everything, and I need you to understand who is talking to you right now. I am not an American political commentator. I am not sitting in Washington or New York or LA, Los Angeles, no, telling you about your country. I am speaking to you from the outside, from Africa, from a continent that did not vote in your election, did not donate to any campaign, did not have a seat at any table, and yet is living with the consequences of every single decision we just talked about. And I am asking you directly, honestly, as somebody who is affected by what you do, what are you going to do about this or what we have just talked about? Because from where I am standing, from this side of the world, the decisions made inside the United States of America do not stay inside the United States of America. They never have. And they never will. When your government cut climate funding, we lost our harvest. When your government starts a war in the Middle East, we pay more for fuel and food. When your government allow idiots to gut and cut the US aid, our hospitals lose medicines, our children lose meals. When your billionaires avoid paying taxes, the global institution that supports the world's most vulnerable communities lose funding. You may ask, but why should American billionaire taxes be helping to support the world's most vulnerable communities? Short answer, these American billionaires do business everywhere in the world. While America in the most part is their market, they use the rest of the world for extraction and factories, and that does a lot of damage to people and communities around the world. You may be inside the building, but we are living in the neighborhood, and when your building catches fire, our neighborhood burns too. So let me tell you, not as an American telling you what to do, but as someone standing outside watching, someone directly affected. What I am asking of you is to first follow the money, because we cannot. You have something in America that most of the world do not have. You have access to government financial records. You have free press. Well, what is left of it? You have a website called OpenSecrets.org, a nonpartisan, independent nonprofit that tracks every dollar flowing through American politics. You can go there right now and look up any politician, any donor, any PAC, and see exactly who paid for them and what they got in return. From here in Africa, I can see the damage, but you have access to the receipts. Use them, share them, because the first weapon against a heist is shining a light on it. The second thing that you can do is know that the people fighting back are actually winning. I want to say this clearly because from the outside, it can sometimes look like resistance is pointless. It is not. In 2025 alone, the ACLU filed over 230 legal challenges against this administration, and 64% of those cases, nearly 2 out of every 3, successfully delayed, diluted, or defeated Trump's agenda in court. 64%. Yeah. The courts are still working. People are still fighting, and they are winning. From Africa, we are watching this, and every court victory matters to us too, because every policy that gets blocked is a policy that does not reach our shores. Third, the 2026 midterm elections, and I say this as someone who cannot vote in them. I want you to hear how strange it is to say what I am about to say. I cannot vote in your elections. My family cannot vote in your elections. And yet, your elections will determine whether our children have access to climate funding, whether our farmers can afford fertilizer. Whether our hospitals receive support, whether the world gets serious about the crisis that is already displacing millions of Africans. Your vote affects our lives directly. The 2026 midterm elections in November are the single most powerful legal tool available to change the direction of this administration. So, from Africa, I am asking you, please register and vote. That's all I'm asking. Register and vote. Fourth, to my black brothers and sisters in America specifically, you are not just Americans. You are part of a diaspora that stretches across the entire planet. What happens to you matters to us. What you build inspires us. What you lose, we feel. The government just eliminated the one agency built specifically to support your businesses. They cut the healthcare your families depended on. They gutted the environmental protections for your communities. And from here, we see what this is. It is not policy. Discrimination. It is discrimination. It is not policy. It is the same story we have been living on this continent for centuries. Resources extracted, institutions dismantled, communities left to survive without support. We live that every day in Africa. The difference is you have tools we do not have. You have a vote. You have legal resource. We don't have those. You can actually tell that from the ages of our presidents and how many terms they have and how long they have been presidents for. We don't have votes. You have organizations fighting for you every single day. Please use every single one of them. Your survival depends on it. Buy black. Bank black. Build black. If you can, invest in each other. Because the lesson of history on both sides of this ocean is that the only power they cannot take from you is the power you build yourself. Fifth, to my people in Africa and the global south, we cannot wait for Washington to save us. We never could. The lesson of everything we have talked about today is this: when you depend on a single superpower for aid, for climate funding, for economic direction, you give that superpower the power to destroy you with one signature. We need African-led institutions, African-funded climate solutions, African trade networks that do not collapse every time there is an election in Washington. We need to build the type of self-sufficiency that means when a billionaire buys the White House, it is their problem, not ours. That work starts now, not when the next crisis hits. Now, from Africa, we are watching. Share this video. Leave a comment below. Tell me from where you are watching. What part of this hits you the hardest? What did you know before today? Let's have that conversation. Because the heist only works when nobody is watching. And subscribe, because next week we are going even deeper. Next week we are talking about religion in Africa and how the same forces of power and control that build this economic heist once used the Bible and the cross to colonize an entire continent, to make Africans hate themselves, to replace indigenous knowledge systems built over centuries with a version of Christianity designed to make people obedient, passive, and dependent. We are going to ask the hardest question of all. Is that the same playbook still used today in a different form with a different name, but with the same goal? That video drops next week. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss it. Bye bye. See you in the next one. And this is exact the water your children. A Senate report. The United States and Israel launch military strikes on Israel. The biggest deregulation. Bill Gates accused him of killing. That single delay we had. But here is what it was doing for quietly in everything. But here is what it was. Fuck, man. Jesus. All these. So be helping to support the world's most vulnerable. They are 50. They assassinated Iran's supreme. Found that black families face a Senate report alleged that Musk. Golly.